Alright, I'm just gonna talk loud. Cool. Well, I'm Wesley, as Alicia said, and today we're talking about working with developers, which is kind of essential nowadays. Almost every business is going to be tech-enabled in some way, even if that is just having a website to make your presence known on the internet. So let's start with who I am. I am a professional software developer. I specialize in full-stack applications, meaning I can do basically anything you need me to, as long as it is on the web and or a phone. Before I was a software developer, I actually taught people how to develop. I taught kids how to code, and that was what I did. And even before that, I was a business consultant working with the Small Business Development Center over at Columbus State. If you have not talked to the Small Business Development Center, you should. They are amazing people. They only want to help you succeed, and they're SBA funded, so it'll be at no cost to you. Awesome. Now into the cool stuff. Why do we want to work with a developer? Whenever you want to create a new custom product, something that does not exist out there in the world, you're going to need to have someone who knows how to write code. You can usually get away with WordPress and some things, but once you get into truly customized products, you need a developer. You also, if you want to have more control, like I said, no code options are great until they're not. Once you hit a wall, you will eventually hit a point where you need to have more control and you will need a developer on your team, which is okay. And also delegate tasks to someone who's more specialized than you. You guys do everything in your business, right? Every hat. Why put another hat on? Why not let someone who's done this for 10 years take it from you and do something for you? Some things to consider though. Development isn't cheap. It just isn't. It takes a lot of time to learn how to code, it takes a lot of time to do the code, and it can be costly. Developers and business owners think differently. You may think you're making an explanation really concise, and the developer will be like, yes, I get it, and do something completely different. Custom development takes time. It takes time, and it may delay whatever product you're trying to launch, and the dreaded bugs that exist in almost every software. Here are my tips on how to handle all of these issues with dealing with custom development. So there are 5 tips. First of all, know what you want. This sounds obvious. I assure you it is not. I have worked with many people over the years, and half of them know what they want, and the other half spend way too much money on their projects because they don't know what they want. Communicate with precision. Again, developers don't think like business owners. We need to make sure we are communicating in a way that both people are able to understand and execute on. Start small and build an onion. That sounds weird. It will make more sense later, I promise. Talk about testing. If you don't ask me to write tests, I will not write tests. That is just how developers work most of the time. It is extra work, but it is important work to prevent those bugs that we were talking about before. And fifth, find the right person. I'm not the right fit for everybody, but there is a dev for every team. It's about finding the right one. So, let's start with what a dev working with dev should not be. Having clearly defined requirements is essential to be able to build what you want. If I don't know what to build, how can I build it, right? Most of the time, this starts in the discovery phase. The discovery phase is usually at the beginning of a project where a developer will sit down with you, talk about everything you need in the project, what it should do, what your vision for this technology is. It'll also come with a time frame, expected costs. The more time you go back to discovery, the more that cost is going to increase. Again, I've had 2 different people. I've had people who have had their requirements, and then people who have no requirements written down. If you have your requirements, you can get through discovery in probably one meeting. If you have a list of everything you want and you can give that to a developer, it should not take a long time, and developers charge by the hour a lot of times, so we don't want that. If you don't have requirements, I have one product that went back to discovery 3 times. That means we did this process 3 times to try to figure out what they wanted 3 times, and they paid me 3 times for every meeting. When we have requirements, we have a clear goal to work towards. I can get started, jump right in, and start building something that I can then show to you, and you can be like, yes, this is good. No, I want to change something. If I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to start building things, and you're going to be like, I guess, maybe, huh? Less pivots and changes saves time and money. That's the most important thing to use. I don't want to take your money if I'm not providing value. You don't want to pay me if I'm not helping you. That saves everybody time and money. Pivots in business are good, always. You want to adjust to your customers' needs. If you're pivoting in software for no reason other than you didn't understand what's going on, it's just costing you money and you're getting no benefit from it. And yeah, if you don't have requirements, again, you need more changes. This takes us into our next point, which is how to communicate clearly. This is a fun little meme, I don't know if you guys can see it from there, about all the different ways a project can be interpreted for a single thing. I can't read minds. I'm pretty smart. I cannot read minds. I don't know what you want, so we're going to introduce a fun tool called a user story. User stories. Once you know what you want, you can create user stories. These look like users will be able to do something. Whatever that thing you want your users to be able to do. If you're making an AI art generator, you should say users will be able to insert a prompt and receive, when users enter a prompt, they will receive an image back. Here's another example. Compare the following. I want to build a social media site where users can create posts, comments, and like posts or comments. Pretty simple, right? Or, users will be able to create an account. Users will be able to log into an account. When a user creates an account, they'll be automatically logged in. A logged-in user can create a post. A logged-in user can create a comment on a post. A logged-in user can like a comment or post one time. Which of these is more detailed? Number 2, thank you. Right? User stories, it's more work. Yes, you have to write more out. But this is work you can do without paying the developer yet. You can have your user stories ready before you sit down at the table and talk to a developer. And they have tons of benefits, right? If I don't have to assume that you wanted me to also create a users table that not anybody on the internet can create a post, I know that now. There's less ambiguity, less assumptions made, and then less changes, which saves you money. It gives us a clear roadmap. If we look back at these, I can go down this list and check the boxes as each one is done. Whereas with the first one, if we wanted to check the box, it would be it's like a percentage bar. It's much harder to look at. Either method for changing requirements. If you say, hey, I actually want people to be able to just spam the like button, you can change one story versus changing the entire description of the project. And it's a base to build test off of. We're talking about tests a little bit later, but tests are very important because they keep your code and your project from not working. Now it's kind of important if your customer goes to your website and it doesn't work, how does that look on you? Build an onion. Onions have layers. This is a really cool concept called onion architecture. I recommend using this for every single application. Your app should be built like an onion. It should have layers. Please bear with me. This is going to be a little more technical than the rest of the slides. What does that mean? Onion architecture is a pattern in which the domain, or the thing you're working with. So that could be, for our social media example, that's a users. If you're building a customer relationship management tool, that would be your customers. Whatever is the core of your problem or your solution is in the center. Your domain acts as the core, and it has layers above which handle other things. The benefits of this are changes to outer layers become easier. If I don't have to change how the center of my onion works, and I only have to change the HTML or the web page that displays the data of my app, it becomes much easier to change. Code is more stable. If we prevent things from breaking, we are saving money. We are helping us achieve our goals. Code isn't repeated. We don't have to rewrite code every time we want to do the same thing. And therefore, development is faster, which I'm going to say saves you money 100 times during this thing. But that's what this is about. How do you help build an onion architecture, right? Understand your domain, right? If I have a customer and I want to get their email, phone number, and then 3 months later I want to get their zip code, it makes me have to change every layer of the onion. I have to start here and change every single layer. Whereas if you knew what you wanted in the core first, you make sure that you don't ever have to change it. Code is more of that. Write user stories with the domain at the center. Again, users should be able to link. Talk to your developer. If you say, hey, I like onion architecture, your developer will likely know what that means and be able to implement it. Any questions so far? Cool.
Yes,
If I'm moving too quickly, or if you need an explanation, I'd rather do it now.
it's very good. I just have questions after.
Cool. Talk about testing. Testing is very important. It is also the thing that a lot of developers don't like doing, because you write code and then you write code to test your code. It's a lot of work. It's working, yeah. How do we make sure it stays that way, though? Right? Think about your project. After the initial project is done, is it going to stay the same forever, or are you going to need to change it? If you're evolving as a business, if you ever pivot, you're going to probably need to change your application. And at some point, that means either the developer who wrote it is going to have to come back and be like, I don't know what I did here. Or another developer is going to have to come in and be like, what did they do here? Reading code is bad, guys. It's not fun. So we test our app. You want to ask your developer. If you do not talk about it, they will assume you do not want tests most times, because testing is not fun. But by asking them to write developer tests, you can avoid breaking parts of the app that weren't effective. Every developer has dealt with this, where they change something in one spot and something across the app breaks. That's not good. That's why we have these tests in place. Bugs. If you can test for a bug and you're expecting, and you can have the computer find it for you before your user finds it, it's way better than dealing with a user being like, your website doesn't work and I'm never buying from you again. And then code being difficult to maintain. Again, somebody will have to look at this code at some point in the future. Almost all code will be looked at some point in the future. Having maintainable code saves you money because you don't have to restart from the beginning. Some trade-offs in testing, though. Writing these tests does take time. It does take extra development time, and that's going to cost money. But if you have a maintainable app, you are saving money in the long run. Initial investment here, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure, right? Start with the prevention, not the cure. Finally, selecting the right dev. Working with developers is great. Developers are awesome. I'm a little biased, but I think we're cool. There's lots of different things we can do, but not every developer can do everything. For example, if you come to me with a data project, I would be great. I'm so happy to help you. Serif Dev, my company, focuses on social enterprises. So if you have a social impact, I would love to work with you. If you want something written in Java or C#, I am not the developer for you. Don't ask me. I can do it. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. Essentially, if you want a WordPress plugin, I can do it. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. I am not the right developer for you. But there are tons of developers out there, and you want to talk to them. Make sure you get along. Developers are going to be part of the team, even if they're just consultants, because they have to work very closely with your team. Or just you, if you're a solo entrepreneur. Make sure you get along, because if you can't stand your developer, odds are they don't love working for you either. That's not going to be a healthy partnership. You want someone who wants you to succeed every time, right? All right. Now we can open it up for a question. We have lots of questions. Let's start. I think that was a little short for 22.
That was great.
All right.
But you can ask your question.
So my question, this is right on time actually, because my app will go for, we're doing the 2.0. So my CTO is our developer as well, and he's having some issues with the display size. So when he's putting the code in, it's working for like the iPad, but not the phone.
Yeah.
So typically we go through like Code Mentor or something like that. I know you mentioned Columbus State, but are there any other services out there that you would recommend that we can like kind of go to get some help with these issues?
I would reach out to Columbus Code and Coffee over here.
Okay.
They have a
Coming right to you.
They have a great community. If you have a code problem, they are the people to go to. Columbus State is our business consultants. They don't do code. I was the closest thing they had to a developer on their team back when I worked for them. Columbus Code and Coffee, it's a great community. Reach out to the community. That's how you're going to find the devs that can help you.
If you have questions, you have to speak loud.
All right.
Microphone's down.
The core of the onion. Is it your recommendation that we build in like all possibilities to that code, to that core, so that as the layers build out, or like, I mean, in terms of like just reeling it in?
There is such a thing as too much, but 9 times out of 10, I'd rather you give me too much and have to cut things out versus not enough and have to start shoving things into the onion, right? And something to consider, you can have multiple domains, you can have multiple onions in your app. That's something I didn't really mention. It's more of a technical thing, but you can have users as one domain and you can have events as another domain. Those are 2 separate domains, and each of them have one layer above them, and then the other layers are wrapped around, so you can reuse that code.
Like a bunch of like
Yeah, it's like a garlic more. At that point, it's more garlic. Yeah.
Thank you, Will. That was awesome. I was just thinking about when you were talking about user stories and the rest. My first times working with a developer, I was struggling to figure out how like my end of that was supposed to work, and so I just wanted to throw out the content strategy as I'd get your opinion on working with people with content strategists. If you have.
I have not worked with content strategists. Okay. Generally, user stories are pretty cross functionality, right? If you say users should be able to do insert, if you're working with a designer, users should see the entire app and be able to navigate to these pages. You can still work with a designer using the same structure.
So for the business owner and getting to those questions, there are methods in like content strategy books that would help get to those and filter out some of the extra stuff. that thing is, those books don't tell you how to work with the developer. They tell you how to figure out what your things are, but they don't tell you what you just said.
Awesome. Okay, I will have to look into those books.
All right, so that's kind of a good segue into my question, which is kind of two-part. So in my, I was working with a client that needed a new website. First of all, I wanted to ask you to expound a little bit more on if you're looking for developers' help, because the customer wanted what turned out to be an electronic medical records system, right? And yeah, the storyboarding and them understanding what they want to do as a business is a very big part of that job, right? So my question for you is, when I was looking for developers for them, that wasn't easy, right? So, and to look for specific ones, to know, like you said, you want to do C++, you want to, I get why you want to do all those ones, right? So, one, looking for, a resource that can put me in front of different developers, and, maybe, and ones that can help me decide which ones or which direction I might need to go. And then my second part is, how do you work with clients that already have in their, so they have in their mind, I'll give you an example, their front end application was just a website, but before they came into me, they spent must have been 6-7 months trying to figure out how to gather all of this data, right? So they were really vested in that. But when it was time to look for another system, and they wanted one that was powerful and could do all these special things, but they wanted it fast and quick, they don't understand that. How do you deal with people that have a hard time getting off of, something they've already invested in, which maybe they never should have, but that makes sense? I don't know.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. Like, how do you deal with customer expectations when they're already invested in project A, and you're like, hey, we need to start over with project B? I understand, I think. So, to answer the first question, I'm going to gesture over here to close coffee code. Talk to developers, get in the community. Another great way to do it is Google what language is best for insert task here. So if you're talking about, you said a customer management system?
I like electronic records.
Electronic record system, all right. So you can look up which language is best for electronic record systems. Every developer is going to argue their favorite language. I will argue Elixir 60% of the time. I will argue Python the other 15% of the time, and then the last 25% I just don't touch, because I'm like, if it can't be done with those languages, I probably don't want to be dealing with it. But, Google those, the top result's usually the right one. Which language is best for this? And then from there you can start looking on places like freelancer.com or Fiverr or any of these freelancing tools where developers go to market themselves, Upwork, and there's one more that I'm missing, but any of these freelancing sites you can look up, oh, this is a heavy data problem, we want Python. Okay, Python developer, and it'll get you closer to what you want. That's a great way to start. Also, getting into the community, talking to devs, Columbus Code Coffee, great people. Awesome place to be. As far as managing customer expectations when you have to switch projects, there's no good way. I'm gonna be honest, there's no good way. The key thing is demonstrating the value that the new system will provide, right? Any change needs to be 50% better or more, right? So if you can't demonstrate that to them, it's hard for them to understand. A easy way that I found to do it is to, I don't want to say tear apart the real system, but point to the future. Like, where do you see this project in 5 years? Oh, well, I see this product over here being able to handle 500,000 users or whatever they need. Demonstrate that the new system will meet their goals in the long term, where the old system, while they invested in it's a great product, will not scale up to that level. And they're holding themselves back by doing it. That's been my experience. Again, it's never a fun conversation. I don't know if I have the correct answer. I don't know if there is a correct answer.
You verified that that's just never going to be easy.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure No special magic tools out there.
I just want to add to that, like, it feels like the best way is how you're handling it. It's like, don't necessarily tear apart like what they've invested in, because they don't want to, that's going to make them defensive and protective of it. But to your point being like, this has worked for you and love it and appreciate it, and now this is where you're going, and this is just, it can't handle it, so this is where we need to go. Feels like the best way. But I also think it's important what you mentioned, like, that has to be like 50% better or whatever you said, because right, if it's just a little bit helpful, well then what's the point? I appreciate it. Okay, Eric, good.
So this is just from decades of experience. Like my experience is that there's English, and then there's like developing English. So even if I feel as though I'm communicating everything I could be communicating with the development team, even my business partner,
Yeah.
there's a huge amount lost in translation, and I don't know how to navigate that.
And this is why we're going back to, I will sing the praises of user stories until the cows come home, because right here, does anybody in this room know what polymorphic associations are? No. This is a polymorphic association. You don't need to know that. You need to know what the user can do, and most times the developer will figure it out. Talk to your developer. Communication is your first line of defense. It is your only line of defense from a misunderstanding.
Oh, one second.
Oh, sorry.
So everybody's asking literally the same question. I'm a Scrum Master. So Scrum Masters actually translate your English to developer English. So developers have a hard time because they're so smart and their brain is already working on their algorithm. They're already working on how to program that. So for them to take that and translate what you're saying, it's not saying that you did a bad job, but there might be a better way. And that's what developers find. They find a better way. So you come in and convince your customer that there's a better way to do what they're trying to say. And then they're trying to, in their head, they know exactly what they want. They have everything listed out. Everything. And then there's nobody who knows to translate that to developer language. And the developers know, like he'll sit there and he'll code in his head. That's what developers do. But there's that person in the middle, like a Scrum Master, an Agile Master, somebody that can translate the two. So if you find somebody that can translate, if that's you, that's great. But if you're not translating to a developer what they're trying to say, then there's that gap.
Yes, absolutely. Scrum Masters are incredible people. I appreciate all the work you do. I could never do it. I am the developer. I am the person coding as we talk about these things, right? So, having a team with a Scrum Master on it, next level. That's amazing. I unfortunately don't have that on my team, but you know, I do my best. Anyway.
So do you think in the cost saving aspect, it is beneficial for someone to like find a Scrum Master consultant like initially, or like how would that work if like you don't have one, right? I don't have one. What does that look like?
As a developer, it depends on what stage you're in the project. If you're a startup who just like, I want something out the door in 10 minutes, maybe we don't need a Scrum Master involved in it. If you are trying to build something, if you're like building on top of an existing app, if you're building extensions to something, if you are trying to make a V2, get a Scrum Master. Because honestly, you can do things that I can't. And I 100% recognize that. And I appreciate people who can do that. Because I don't have that
So
skill.
if it's like a version 2 or more, you should think about having a
That's
Scrum
not
Master.
necessarily true. So Scrum Masters actually translate through things. So you have projects you want to, I want to create an app. You want to create an app, we take your needs assessment. So whatever stage it's at, will help tremendously to explain to the developer exactly what you want. So it's more than just phase 2, phase 1, phase 3. It's understanding the whole picture versus just pieces and parts. If I can have all the information, there's no way I can translate to him or the owner or the developer what you want.
Yeah.
Learning so much today.
I have a question.
But we had, can she go first? And then, okay.
Oh, actually, that answered my
Oh, that answered
question
your
because
question,
my
okay.
question was going to be like, is there such thing as a developer whisperer? I've been in that position. I feel like where I've been in-house in an agency before, where there's also been in-house developers, and I'm the only one on the marketing team that seems to be able to speak both languages. And so I was like, is there such thing? What is that?
Maybe you should be a Scrum
Maybe I
Master.
should have a Scrum Master.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this.
I have a question. With, so Scrum Masters, I have looked at that a little bit. In my opinion, I got the idea that that was the new age, like project manager, or are you just more technical?
We're both English speaking and developer speaking.
Okay,
So
perfect.
we can take a project from A to start to finish. We have product builders that help the developers. So we translate every information. The project goes from start to finish. We usually do that in increments. I think increments might be different. So we'll continue to hold. So there's always production happening. There's always results happening at that time. It's not happening. You feel what's happening and why it's happening. Structure is simulation. So if you have a 6-month time frame, you've already figured out what's going to happen in that 6-month time frame from that needs assessment decision. So now the developer can say, okay, this is exactly what's going to go. I'm going to have this, and every time we have done more sprints. Every time we have a sprint done, we make sure that it's done and it's live. It's literally live. So you're not working on a waterfall, you're working on the whole project and then you test. But in sprints, you actually do the project, develop project, test it, and then live. So your project is live faster.
Are services like that available for, so the only time that I come across a Scrum Master is big corporation banks, you know, so for smaller businesses, do you guys, offer?
There's services, there's like a ton of services available, whether it's Fiverr, whether it's Upwork.
Upwork, yeah.
They have them available, it's just a matter of what you need. So you might not need a Scrum Master because you already got the plan and it's in a good position to say developer and worker developer. But you have to have everybody together, so the developer has to be involved, the users have to be involved, everybody from the whole period of what you want to do has to be involved. So the developer has a big say in what to do.
Yeah, I like that idea. I didn't know you guys were, consulting.
Yeah. A lot of them are, I'm a developer too. So I see what he sees better. He codes while we're working and he'll tell me what he's in, can't do it. You can't do that this spring. You can only do it this spring. This has to happen before this. So they tell me what has to happen, but we put it together, creates that plan. So he's telling everybody what cannot be done at the same time. So that plan makes it easier because when he's going through all the steps, those are really all the steps that he has to go through. He's telling you in English, not in code.
Great.
I was just wanting to point out, like, it's really important to find the right person on your team to talk to the developer. Tell me if I'm
Yep.
okay. And that's because I've had a similar role, more like what Ashley was doing, where it was marketing, and my developer was on the other side of the cubicle wall, and we tossed gummy bears and ideas back and forth. But the thing that I have found, because now I teach computer science, is that computer science is based, and correct me developers, but is based on specific to general processing. So for people, it's more like neurodivergent processing than neurotypical neural processing. So it is everything is individual, and you have to create the entire world and tell it how to connect. And how neurotypical brains work and how a lot of business is conducted is the opposite. It's general to specific. So it's like, oh, I just want a website. Like, you know, it should be a social site. It should, yeah. So like a very like, oh, that has a whole lot of assumptions. But if the person on your team who is talking to the developer cannot break those assumptions down, I was telling Will earlier that like I made my to-do list this morning and the first item was stand up. I'm not joking. But like if they can't break those things down into those pieces, those user stories at that level, they need to be able to like and comment. Their brains may not be able to do that. Like there are people who can't do that. That's not and those people will be very frustrated working with a developer and think the developer is being a jerk. The developer is not being a jerk. The developer is asking for exactly what they need. So you need to find the person on your team who can break that down, because that translation is a real thing. And if you've got, especially a lot of entrepreneurs will want like minimal viable product and not want to go through all of the discovery and all of the user stories, what they don't understand with that is that they are, if it's a development project, they're wasting a ton of money.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of competing priorities and different mindsets, but also find the person on your team that can work from the specific to the general.
So Wesley and I have been working together on a project, and I've learned a lot, and this was awesome. I've learned even more. So I remember though when we were first talking, and I was like, this is what I want, this is what I wanted to do, and you were like translating what I was telling you and then writing the user story, and then I was like, yeah, and it made sense, but for me, I felt like if I were to give you I felt like I was like burdening you with all of these things, and so getting used to like, okay, just because I'm listing out all of these things, it does seem like a lot of work, but almost for me, I felt like I was putting a lot of work onto you, and I don't know, but it's like needed, right? Like those are the things that are needed to make it easier. So it is just like, it's just commenting like, that was something I am still getting used to, because I just feel like, if it's not too difficult, if it's not too whatever, and then you'd be like, oh, that's like this. I'm like, okay, yeah.
Going off that point, I'd rather have 100 specific bullet points than one general bullet point. Every time. I work in academia, so I have a very, very strong understanding of, I want bleh, and I'm like, okay, I have to break that down myself, because academics are very much like developers. They're very focused in their field, and they know what they know, and it's hard to translate between that and what I know. So I've had to learn how to do that over time.
But now that I know that that is like what is wanted and is better for you. Mm-hmm. Like I'll sit down, I'll write a whole list. But it felt like, well, anyway, I appreciated that.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is in regards to the user story and the
Yes.
So the user story, because I'm working on a company with the user story, what are the promise practices, how long or how short it should be, and do you have to write a separate user story for every layer, or is the user story separate?
So user stories are separate from the onion architecture, because, so one thing about like, all right, if I'm saying my domain, my core of my onion is users, right? One story should be, users should be able to create an account with all of the fields in it. right? So let's say you want their first name, last name, phone number, email, zip code, preferred pronouns, all of those things. You need to put that in the story because otherwise I'll have to go back into the onion later and add those in. And then I have to push stuff down and I have to change every layer of the architecture.
Every detail.
Yeah, so every user story should have a subject, which is who can do it, and an action, which is what they can do. It should have any details required to do that action, right? So, my example back here is not perfect. I'm going to spam through back all my slides, right? I simply said users will be able to log into an account. I didn't say how they'd be able to log into an account. I should have said users can create an account with a username and a password. Users will be able to log into the account using their username and password. It should be more detailed. I ran out of room on this slide.
Okay. And that, if I didn't have that there, that means you have to go all the way back.
Yes,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Thank you.
All right.
The great thing about developers, they throw in the things that we forget. So the team asks, and they'll ask those questions. So if you think of in general, they're going to ask, okay, you want name, address, phone number, email, work number, whatever, and you pick and choose. So when I work with customers, I always tell them download like arm in the mouth, arm in the mouth, and whatever you want. As a developer, what you heard about developers, they fill in all your blanks that you did with it. Because again, they're coding in their head on how is the construction. So common at the bottom.
Yeah, I was just saying what she was saying. When you're filling out that story, you really do have to be as detailed as you can. Because in the end, as the owner, and looking at that product, you already have an idea of what it's looking like. Anybody that creates and puts in front of you, they know that feeling. When like, oh no, that's not this, that's not that. But all of that can be really figured out in that story process. So, you know, like you said, give them as much information because the right developer will ask you those, you know, how do you want that drop down to look? How do you want it to look? But the other certain ones might not. They can say, well, you didn't tell me, and I got $1 million other projects, so this is what it looks like. And then we would have to revisit that whole process. So,
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The developer and consultant, as far as saving time,
Yeah.
be able to identify what's needed in the user story or you put it in the web. So, we got to do it this way, but that should be able, if the user story is as detailed, you can consult for action.
Yes, if your user stories are detailed to the point and exactly what you want, the developer will be able to go and, you know, small tweaks will happen every time. Nobody's perfect. There's always going to be a bug every single time. That's why we write tests. That's why we, you know, use onion architecture. We want to make sure our app is as good as possible. But yes, as long as you have all the details in, the developer should be able to just go, and if they have questions, they should ask. Yes, a good developer will always ask questions. Like, I can't tell you how many emails I've sent, which is just like, what color did you want that box to be?
yeah, while you're filling out that story, look at your competitors, go to their websites,
Yes.
see how those flow. Because that will, you know, that will give you, I don't want mine to look like that. But it will also be able to give you information to go back to your developer and say, out of what I've already looked at, this is what I know I don't want, this is, can you do this? So that research and understanding of what you want and how that's going to look like, very important, guys.
One last question regards to user. How are some good concepts to think about that user friendly? What are some absolute stay away from? Because that's terrible.
That's a UI question. I'm not a UI designer. You would want to talk to a UI designer most times. Generally, you want an app to be responsive, friendly, have a nice flow. You don't want, like, if I have to click a button and then click another button and go to a different page to log in, I'm not logging in. You know, if I can click a button at the top right and it pulls down a drop down and I can fill it in right there to log in, that's preferable. The less steps your user takes, usually the better.
So just, I mean, we referred to, like, talk about saving money a lot. What we haven't really thrown in is, like, what to estimate, you know, because, I mean, I know how customized it is. I mean, when I work with, you know, even my business partner, the answer to can it be done is always yes. Then it's like, you know, what did it cost? And then there's this blank stare. Because it's like, I don't know enough of what you want.
I can tell you what I would charge per hour. I usually charge 60 per hour. That's just that's actually a pretty low rate, but I'm also I'm fairly early in my career, so I understand that I can't charge as much as people who have decades of experience. But I charge $60 an hour mostly because the people I work with, I'm very selective. I choose people who have a mission that I feel passionate about. I want to provide things that help people. We build software for people, not just, if you ask me to make cryptocurrency, I'm going to laugh at you. Because I don't care.
Yes.
I care about helping people, so I will charge less in order to be able to meet that mission. Normally you're looking at upwards of $100 an hour, from what I've seen. And if you're working with a full team, like a Scrum Master, it could be even more.
But I don't even know what $100 buys, like what an hour buys.
It depends on how defined your user stories are.
That's why kind of understanding what you want as you sit down is very important. Give them. If you have examples, you know, this website or this app, then the developer will go, oh, that's what you want, and has a better idea of, and it can maybe give you an estimate, 50 hours, 100 hours. So you have kind of a budget, and you really want that so you can kind of hold it to it, right? Because, you know, I'm getting further into it, but when they give you that price, there should be a plan that should be followed, that has increments that, you know, a Scrum Master or a project manager is going to say, this is off, this should be done, and you guys talk to lead, so your money is managed, and the product stays on
Yeah.
It sounds like we need a part 2 with like expectations of like what should be done in the week or what this project timeline should look like or
You don't want to get
plan.
30 hours into the project.
Yeah. Because
All of that should be discussed during discovery. It varies between developers. If you ask me to put sound bites on a map, I can do that in 10 hours. No problem. I could link your S3 bucket down to your sound, and I could build it 10 hours flat, a weekend worth of work, done. Not a big deal. Other developers, and you're like, I want GIS systems, I want something on a map. I've never done that before. It's going to take me 5 hours to learn how to do that, 10 hours to do the thing. That's why you need to also find the right developer. Find someone who's done what you're wanting to do before. Portfolios are great. Almost every developer has a portfolio. Ask them for it.
Okay. This is the final question because we're past our time, but I'm an organizer, so I'm gonna ask the last question. So, okay. Are there groups of developers who kind of freelance together? So let's say you do a thing, Noelle does visual stuff better, I don't know what, you know, like that I go to you and you work on something, but then we're working together and have to find different people.
At least in my experience, I am absolutely willing. If I literally refuse to make my own website. I'm like, Nathan is way better at CSS than I am. He is the visual person. I am the data person. I will pay Nathan to make my website for me because I don't find value and enjoyment in doing the visual side of things.
So could there be benefit in like, okay, in this team is like, okay, I found one developer, but really if I found this team, right, that all like, but I'm paying the team, but you all are separate. I don't know, I think that would be valuable. Or then there's like a Scrum Master that's a part of that you're just used to working together, right? And you can help different projects be tackled.
Yes, generally most developers work on teams. You should probably get a team of developers because,
But a freelancing type team,
yes,
right? So they're not all on Serif Dev, right? They're just, is that a thing? A collective?
I mean, yes and no. Like most time it's how we outsource it. So like you come to me with this and I'm like, I don't know what they want with the visuals. Let me pull in my partner who I'm paying an hourly rate
Okay.
from the hourly rate that you're paying me
Oh, okay.
to do this thing.
Okay.
That's usually how it works. That's how most freelancers in my experience deal with it.
Okay.
Obviously I have good connections with a couple of very talented design people, and I have a very good community of people who I would love to work with.
Okay, so you would typically just like subcontract.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, thank you so much.
Feel free to scan this QR code, takes you to my LinkedIn. You can email me at wesley@serifdev.com. That's all I got.